This is a very interesting weather-related story in the Bible. The end of the age, regardless of your view of eschatology, premillennial, amillennial, a group now that is popularized by the emerging church folks and the Rick Warrens of the world who have opted for something called panmillennialism. Panmillennialism, it'll all pan out in the end. They don't want to take a firm and definite view on anything that they don't think is important, although how the world will end is seeming kind of an important thing. But at the end of the age, in the book of Revelation, we see lots of weather-related phenomena in relation to the end. In 6:12, the sun is darkened. Folks, without the sun, the weather on this planet changes drastically. In 7:1, the wind stops. Now, wind runs all of the weather on this planet. If the wind stopped right now on the whole planet, let's say all air on this planet stopped, all of the wind stopped, no air motion at any level on this planet, we would probably all be dead before we got home. The planet would cease to exist when that happens. Hail and fire in verses 8 through 7, 8:7, 16:8 and 9, scorching sun, and in 16:21, 100-pound hailstones hitting the planet. Anyone here from Texas, the Midwest, any place like that? My son's in the Air Force. He's stationed in San Antonio right now, and they have fun things. We were there visiting one time, and we saw there they have these big thunderstorms and things, and hail come by. And the car dealers, they have what's called hail sales, because the hailstones they bang the cars. You get hailstones the size of a quarter, which would have to really sting if you got hit by one, I would think. And they just ding up cars, and so they got these cars. They still run, but the body's destroyed, the paint's destroyed, so they have a sale. And so you imagine now 100-pound hailstones hitting you with more than sting. And 100-pound hailstones falling out of the sky is going to just do lots and lots of damage. It's a mark of the end of the age. Foundational concepts of weather in the Bible. Now, the Bible tells us a lot of information about basically three things we're going to concentrate on. The concepts that were not discovered, and I put that word in quotes because they were always in the Bible, until the 16 and 1700s. The wind and the currents and cycles of wind. Look at Ecclesiastes chapter 1. Ecclesiastes chapter 1 verse 6. Blowing towards the south, then turning towards the north, the wind continues swirling along, and on its circular courses the wind returns. Solomon is writing in the late Bronze Age about something that the scientists in the West really did not discover and document until about 1658. That the wind, like the currents of water in the ocean, the wind is moving in currents around this world. There's not a very good graphic, but a little graphic I threw up of the direction of what we call the prevailing winds. And those are just the surfaced winds. For instance, if we went outside right now, the wind might be blowing in a northerly direction 3, 4, 5 miles an hour. If we went up in elevation straight up about 500 feet, the wind might be blowing east at 80 miles an hour. If you went up another 500 or 600 feet or a couple of thousand feet where the planes are flying, the smaller planes are flying, you might get winds blowing in a completely different direction at 20 miles an hour. Get up to 35,000 feet where the jets are flying, you get into the jet stream, the winds up there might be blowing 200 miles an hour in a completely different direction. So every layer of elevation you are, there's different wind currents who could be going in opposite directions. This is what happens when you get, in weather, when you get thunderstorms very often. You get a warm body of air along the surface blowing relatively slowly in one direction, very, very cold air blowing in another direction, and when they hit in the middle, you get thunderstorms. You get really, really nasty weather. Which is what causes weather. The currents of wind really run everything. When we talk about weather, what causes weather? Well, bottom line is, we really don't know. Meteorologists, climatologists really don't know what causes wind currents. We have guesses, but we don't know why if it's caused by the sun's radiation, things like that, why does the wind always blow in these very, very predictable currents? Why does the ocean currents, which we see in Jonah chapter 2, verse 3, where it talks about Jonah saying, I'm caught, I'm trapped, I'm being sucked into the currents of the ocean. What causes those currents? Again, we really don't understand what causes those things. There's guesses, there are different theories, but all of them are predicated by the idea of theory. Probably the most famous, and something that you've probably read about it at some level, is the hydrological cycle. We see that in Ecclesiastes 1:7 as Solomon continues after he talks about the wind in verse 6. In verse 7 he says, all the rivers flow into the sea, yet the sea is not full. To the place where the rivers flow, there they flow again. Look at several passages, and then we'll make some comments about it. Look at Job chapter 26. And verse 8, he wraps up the waters in his clouds, and the cloud does not burst under them. The clouds hold water. There's a concept of holding tons and tons of water in the clouds that are suspended in the air, a concept, again, that was not really discussed and detailed scientifically until the 1600s. Look at Job 36 and verse 36, 27, and 28. For he draws up the drops of water, they distill rain from the mist, which the clouds pour down, they drip upon man abundantly. In 38:22. Again, have you entered the storehouses of the snow? Have you seen the storehouses of the hail? Where does God keep hail? Where does it all come from? It comes from the clouds, where He keeps it stored. In Psalm 135, verse 7. He causes the vapors to ascend from the ends of the earth, who makes lightnings for the rain, who brings forth the winds from his treasure. And then Isaiah 55. In verse 10. For as the rain and snow come down from the heaven, and do not return there without watering the earth, and making it bear and sprout, and furnishing seed to the sower and bread to the eater, so shall my word which goes forth from my mouth, it shall not return to me empty without accomplishing what I desire, and without succeeding in the matter for which I sent it. Here God uses the analogy of the hydrological cycle to talk about His Word. God's Word goes forth and it accomplishes His purpose. One of the things we might miss there, you say, is the cycle, because he says in verse 10 there, for as the rain and the snow come down from heaven and do not return there. How does it return? It evaporates. The water that's on the earth, in the lakes and the streams, on the ground, it evaporates. You've seen when it rains in the afternoon and then the sun comes out and you have a hot day and you can see the steam going back up into the sky. the hydrological cycle. This is one of the most important weather-related phenomena. Without this, you don't have weather.